I hadn't stepped inside that house in nearly 2 years. It looked the same. Perfectly manicured lawn, towering hedges trimmed like soldiers, white stone walls still immaculate, as if time itself refused to age the Sinclair estate. Only this time, I wasn't a boy coming home for the holidays. I was a stranger summoned for something cold and calculated. The text from my mother, Veronica, had been curt. Family meeting, 7 p.m. Mandatory. Not a hello, not a how are you, just a command. That was her language. Control disguised as tradition. I stood at the threshold, fingers hovering over the brass lion-shaped doorbell. The moment felt heavier than it should have. I was already dressed for war. They just didn't know it yet. The door swung open before I even touched it. Veronica stood there, steel in her eyes, her lips curled in subtle disapproval. "You're late," she said. It was 6:58 p.m., right on time in the real world, but in their world, even punctuality was a rebellion. Inside, the living room was staged like a courtroom. My siblings flanked the long leather couch like a panel of judges. Marcus, all crisp suits and colder words. A lawyer who treated family like litigation. Sophia, still in her hospital scrubs, arms folded like a gatekeeper of morality. Claudia, head down, thumbing through her phone, too busy, too successful, too detached to care. And then there was Veronica, seated beside them like the queen of an empire built on polished reputations and ivory degrees. They didn't offer a greeting, just silence and condescension. A single chair had been placed in the center of the room, directly across from them, like I was here for sentencing. I sat without a word. "Julian," Marcus began, opening a thick file of documents, as if this were a deposition. "This is a formal notification of the family's decision. In the interest of protecting the Sinclair legacy and public image, we've decided to sever all ties." He slid the papers across the glass table. I didn't need to read every word. Bold phrases screamed at me like slaps. Termination of family relations, forfeiture of inheritance, severance of financial support. I laughed, not out of humor, but disbelief. A hollow, instinctive defense. "So you're cutting me off?" I said, meeting each of their eyes. "This isn't personal," Claudia finally said, eyes never leaving her screen. "It's just business." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I smiled. The kind of smile that comes when you've seen this ending long before the first scene ever started. "Where do I sign?" I asked. They hesitated, as if they hadn't prepared for indifference. Veronica blinked. "Julian, we're still willing to reconsider if..." "Where do I sign?" Marcus pointed. I signed. 10 minutes later, it was done. I rose from the chair, feeling lighter than I'd expected. No more pretending. No more waiting for them to see me. No more hoping they'd understand that I wasn't broken, just different. As I reached the door, I turned to them one last time. "You spent so long being ashamed of me. Not one of you ever asked what I'd built. You assumed I was playing with glue and paint like a child," I said, voice low. "But you never saw the empire I was creating." I walked out. The door shut softly behind me, far too gentle for the weight of what had just ended. That night, the cold air felt like freedom. And in that moment, despite the tears I wouldn't let fall, I knew the real story was only beginning. 3 days later, I was back in my studio, the place they had mocked, misunderstood, and ultimately feared. A repurposed warehouse in the industrial arts district. Our studio was nothing like their sterile glass offices or hospitals. This place smelled of sawdust, acrylic, and ambition. The walls were lined with reclaimed wood, shelves crammed with recycled glass and rusted metal, each piece holding a story. Here, the chaos made sense. I was brushing a satin finish over a hand-carved sculpture, something I had shaped from old train car scraps, when Leo walked in, coffee in hand, eyes wide with purpose. "They really did it?" he asked, setting the cup beside me. I didn't look up. "Yeah, signed the papers. Officially not a Sinclair anymore." Leo let out a whistle. "Damn, that's cold. You good?" I nodded, even if my chest was still learning how to breathe without a family name attached to it. "There wasn't anything left to hold on to," I said. Before he could respond, the door slammed open. Nora, my other half in this venture, the one who turned chaos into commerce, barged in, holding her laptop like it was made of gold. "You two need to see this right now," she said, breathless. "Another vendor issue?" I asked. "Julian, no, this is everything." She spun the laptop toward me. The homepage of Living in Style stared back, bold and beautiful. The artist turning trash into treasure. Meet Julian Wells, pioneer of sustainable interior design. I blinked. Then again, my name, in a headline, next to words like pioneer. Holy shit, Leo whispered. They called you an artist. I couldn't speak. Nora scrolled down and tapped. That's not all. Business Forward just shared it. I froze. Business Forward, the business magazine, a shrine to CEOs, billionaires, venture capitalists. And now, me? They're asking you to be on the cover of next month's issue, she said, eyes glittering. My heart thudded against my ribs. I had spent years trying to prove my work had value, not just to them, but to the world. And now the world was finally listening. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Schedule the shoot, I said, and tell them I'm in. From there, it all unfolded like a dam had cracked. The article went viral. My inbox exploded. Orders flooded in, not just from locals, but internationally. Tokyo, Berlin, New York. Boutique hotels, high-end design firms, even eco-conscious celebrities. Our revenue multiplied overnight, 50 times. No exaggeration. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was just building what I loved, and they came to me. Then came the texts. Dad, call me. Marcus, we need to talk. It's important. Claudia, read the article. Impressive. Mom and Veronica want to see you. Each message was short, dry, restrained, like they were testing the waters. But I didn't respond. Tomorrow, I had a photo shoot. The day after that, a segment on national television, a feature interview about my work, my journey, and suddenly they could wait. This time, I wasn't their son. I was someone on my own. The invitation came, as always, in the form of a command. Dinner, 7 p.m. Sunday. Everyone will be there. We need to talk, Veronica. There was no warmth in the message, just another directive, as if I still answered to their hierarchy. Except this time, there was one word that made me pause. Sweetheart. That wasn't Veronica's language. Not since I was a child. Still, I didn't answer immediately. I had meetings, clients, interviews, people who respected me not because of my last name, but because of what I'd built. I was no longer the son trying to earn a place at the table. I was the man who had built his own. But curiosity, that's a powerful thing. So at exactly 7:00 p.m., I rang the bell to the same house that had exiled me. Veronica opened the door, her face pale and strangely unreadable. Her eyes were tired, her voice composed but trembling. Julian, you came. I didn't answer, just stepped inside. The scene was eerily familiar. The living room, perfectly arranged like a magazine spread. Only this time, there were no glares, no tight lips, no judgment, just silence and anticipation. Marcus sat with his briefcase closed, a symbol of retreat rather than aggression. Sophia had her hands folded in her lap, unusually quiet. Claudia's phone was nowhere in sight. And Veronica? She stood beside the fireplace, but not as a general ready to deliver a verdict. This time, she looked like a woman who had run out of options. My father, once a titan of formality, sat quietly beside them. He didn't even meet my eyes. We wanted to speak to you, as a family, Marcus said. I raised a brow. Now I'm family again? Sophia winced. Claudia spoke up next. Julian, the company's in trouble. I tilted my head. Your car empire? It's outdated, Marcus said, cutting in. The auto industry's changed. Investors are pulling out. Our lenders want collateral we can't give. We're looking at bankruptcy in less than 60 days. Veronica finally stepped forward. We need your help, I laughed, soft, bitter. You disowned me for being a disgrace. Now you want me to save the very name that threw me out. It's not like that, Claudia murmured. Isn't it? I snapped. You ridiculed my studio. Sophia called my work childish. Marcus drafted the contract that cut me off. Veronica, you said I was embarrassing the Sinclair legacy. Veronica's voice cracked. We were wrong. That stopped me for a moment. I looked at her, truly looked. She wasn't standing tall anymore. She looked small, human, like someone finally learning humility. Still, I didn't move from where I stood. So what do you want? I asked. My father finally spoke. A partnership. The word hung in the air like smoke. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. You want me as a partner in the company that tried to erase me? We need a new image. A new direction, Marcus said. You have the reputation, the influence. You mean the same reputation you all mocked? They had no rebuttal. I walked toward the door. You know what? I said. Fine, let's talk business. They blinked. But not here, I added. We do this at my table now. My terms. A week later, the Bellevue Business Club, I arrived on time. No earlier, no later. The Bellevue was one of the city's most exclusive venues, not just for its food, but for who it kept out. My family used to frequent it, flaunting their membership status. Funny thing was, now I was the VIP. As I stepped inside, the staff greeted me by name. The manager personally escorted me to the private dining room. A special menu had been prepared, my favorites. Inside, they were already waiting. Marcus looked tense. Claudia was visibly nervous. Sophia avoided eye contact. Veronica clutched a cloth napkin, folding and unfolding it like a prayer. I sat down slowly, letting the silence build. "So," I said, lifting a glass of wine, "what do you want?" Marcus placed a folder on the table. "We're ready to offer you equal partnership, rebranding rights, and a seat at the executive board." I took a sip. "No." Veronica looked up, startled. "No. If I step in," I said calmly, "I do it my way. Sinclair Auto is dead. I won't resuscitate it. I'll rebuild it." Claudia frowned. "Rebuild? A new company, Sinclair Electric, focused on sustainable transport, designs influenced by recycled art, zero-waste manufacturing. We change everything." Sophia shifted in her seat. "You'd be CEO?" I nodded. 51% ownership. Full executive control. No interference. You three get shares proportional to actual contributions, not bloodline. My father, I glanced at him, will serve as honorary advisor. No voting power. The silence was deafening. Then Veronica exhaled. "That's fair. Also," I continued, "we don't pretend nothing happened. We acknowledge it. No more shame. No more talking down to me. If I lead this, you treat me as an equal, or I walk." Marcus nodded slowly. "Understood." I looked around the table. "I don't want your apology," I said, standing. "I want your respect. Earn it. And I'll build something better than all of you ever imagined." I left them there, stunned but silent. They had thrown me out as an embarrassment. Now, they were following me into the future. Exactly 1 year after they disowned me, I stepped through the glass doors of Sinclair Electric, not as a guest, not as a rejected son, but as its CEO. The company didn't just get a makeover, it was reborn. Gone were the stiff boardrooms and showroom banners of generic car models. In their place stood an open concept space that blurred the line between art and engineering. Sculptures made from upcycled steel stood proudly beside our new electric vehicles, all streamlined, silent, and elegant in design. Light bounced through massive glass walls, refracting through chandeliers built from salvaged headlights. We'd done it. Sinclair Electric wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. We had just secured a partnership with one of the top sustainable battery manufacturers in Europe, giving our vehicles a range that even legacy EV brands couldn't match. Our models were efficient, beautiful, and most importantly, ethical. Clients were no longer just buyers. They were believers. And my family? They'd found their places, for once, not at the top, but in positions that actually fit. Marcus had left his courtroom crusade behind to become our chief legal officer. His aggressive tone mellowed when applied to corporate contracts instead of family ultimatums. Sophia headed the company's medical transport innovation unit, designing eco-friendly vehicles for hospitals and rural clinics. She was the same perfectionist, but now that energy went towards saving lives. Claudia led research and development, overseeing power efficiency systems and collaborating with young engineers who actually looked up to her, not because of her name, but because of her ideas. My father, now formally retired, remained in the background as honorary advisor, offering thoughts only when asked. That was new for him, but he respected the boundary. For the first time, we all did. Our biggest launch yet, the opening of our third Sinclair Electric showroom, took place in what used to be a tired auto factory. Now, it pulsed with creativity and light. The crowd was massive. Reporters, investors, designers, even critics who had once mocked my vision. I stood on the small stage, heart pounding. 1 year ago, I said, I was told I was a disgrace to my family, that my work had no value, that my ideas were childish. I let that sit in the air for a moment. Today, we are not just launching cars. We are launching a new way of thinking, where sustainability and innovation live side by side. This is not about revenge. It's about reinvention. The applause roared like thunder. That night, we hosted a celebration in the courtyard behind the new showroom. Twinkling lights hung above, reflecting off our latest model, a sleek silver SUV designed with a frame inspired by recycled ship metal. Guests drank, laughed, marveled, and near the end of the evening, we all gathered beneath the sculpture that sat at the heart of the building. I had made it myself, a twisted, rising form of molten glass and steel, made from the ashes of the disownment papers my family once made me sign. I had burned every page, fused the remains into art. Now it stood there, a symbol not of what was lost, but of what had been reborn. Veronica stood beside me, quietly. She reached out, her hand brushing the glass edge. "It's beautiful," she said softly. For a long moment, I didn't answer. Then I turned to her. "It's what you tried to destroy." She blinked back tears but didn't defend herself this time. "I know, and I was wrong." I gave her a faint nod. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. We walked back to the others, all of us gathering around the sculpture like some kind of strange, hard-earned peace treaty. Later that night, Marcus approached me as the crowd thinned. "You realize this makes you the most powerful Sinclair now, right?" I gave him a half smile. "Power's not the point." "No," he admitted, "but you're using it better than we ever did." We clinked glasses. Claudia and Sophia joined us a moment later, both more relaxed than I'd ever seen them. For once, there was no pretense, no silent competition, just family. But this time, it was on my terms. I used to believe closure was a myth, that some stories just ended messy, loose threads, unresolved tension, people walking away instead of making amends. But I've learned that closure doesn't always arrive with a dramatic apology or a tearful embrace. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's earned one small decision at a time. 3 months after the launch of our third Sinclair Electric showroom, I finally understood what legacy meant. Not inheritance, not blood, but the work you leave behind and the people you lift with you. That month was surreal. We were expanding faster than expected. Global investors were lining up. Our latest eco-friendly model sold out on pre-orders before we'd even finalized the marketing campaign. The waiting list was booked 6 months ahead. But even with all the momentum, it wasn't the business that changed me most. It was the way my family showed up. Not perfectly, not with grand speeches, but with quiet consistency. Sophia started dropping by the studio, asking questions about sustainable design. She even suggested we collaborate on a specialized medical vehicle for emergency pediatric care. Her idea, not mine. Marcus began referring young entrepreneurs to our mentorship program, and to my surprise, insisted we create a fund for underrepresented inventors. He called it the Wells Initiative. Claudia, once the queen of indifference, invited me to guest lecture at an engineering workshop she was hosting. She introduced me as the visionary behind Sinclair's comeback, not a hint of sarcasm in her voice. And Veronica? One afternoon, she showed up at my studio unannounced. No entourage, no driver, just her and a box. "I found these in the attic," she said, placing it on the table. Inside were old sketches, mine, from when I was 13, maybe 14, back when I used to draw futuristic cities made from glass and garbage, little vehicles shaped like tree leaves, building blueprints scrawled on the backs of history quizzes. "I kept them," she added quietly, "even when I said you were wasting your time." I didn't know what to say. For once, she wasn't speaking as Veronica, the matriarch. She was just my mother, a flawed one, but trying. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said, "but I hope we can keep learning each other." I nodded. "We already are." The final turning point, a week later, I received an email that stunned me into silence. Subject, MoMA invitation, featured artist opportunity. At first, I thought it was a mistake. A scam, maybe, but it wasn't. The Museum of Modern Art wanted to showcase my sculpture, the one made from the ashes of the disownment papers, in their upcoming sustainability and society exhibit. Not just a piece of furniture or function. They saw it as art. That was the moment I knew I had crossed a threshold even I hadn't dared to dream of. When I told Leo and Nora, they were speechless. Leo grabbed me in a hug and lifted me off the floor. Nora cried, which, if you knew her, was like watching a glacier melt. "Julian," she said, They didn't just recognize you, they elevated you. We celebrated that night. Not at a gala, not at some exclusive rooftop, but at our studio. We danced under strings of recycled bulbs and drank cheap champagne. The same concrete floor where I once glued bottle caps and burned my hands shaping molten glass now carried the weight of something sacred, fulfillment. 1 year later, Sinclair Electric had become more than a company. It was a movement. We'd launched a foundation to support eco-artists, partnered with education programs in underserved neighborhoods, created apprenticeship opportunities that didn't require a degree from anywhere fancy, just passion. Our showrooms now doubled as rotating exhibits. Every location housed a piece from a local artist, crafted from waste and wonder. Customers weren't just buying cars, they were stepping into living galleries. And in the center of it all, in our flagship showroom downtown, stood the sculpture I had made, fused from bitterness and hope, rejection and rebirth. We renamed it Inheritance, because that's what this was. Not money, not approval, but truth passed down, reshaped, and reclaimed. The family we became. We weren't perfect, still had disagreements, old wounds that stung in the quiet. But now, when we gathered, it wasn't out of duty, it was real. We laughed more, listened better, ate dinner without checking phones. Veronica had retired from public charity boards and now volunteered at a local sustainability co-op. Sophia and Claudia co-led a design challenge for EVs in remote regions. Marcus started writing actual poetry about the burden of legacy and the weight of silence. And me, I still designed, still built, still walked into my studio at sunrise with coffee and wild ideas. But I also mentored, taught, sat with young kids who reminded me of myself, all questions and calloused hands. Sometimes they'd ask, "How did you get here?" And I'd smile, remembering the sound of a pen on cold paper, the sting of silence, the softness of glass cooling into form. I chose a different path, I'd say, and I kept walking, even when no one else believed it was real. Story 2, I'll never forget the moment I read that message. I was halfway through a sandwich at my desk when the notification lit up my phone. It was from my sister, Nora. "Hey, just wanted to let you know the guest list is finalized, and we had to make some tough cuts. Hope you understand. Love you, tough cuts." At first, I thought it was a mistake. Surely she didn't mean I was one of those cuts. I wasn't a distant cousin or some old friend from high school she'd lost touch with. I was her brother. Not just that I'd been her emotional lifeline more times than I could count. Through every breakup, every job loss, every meltdown, guess who she called? Me. I reread the message 5 times before dialing my mom. She picked up on the second ring, her voice chipper like nothing was wrong. "Hey, sweetie, what's up?" I didn't waste time with pleasantries. I just got a text from Nora. She says the guest list is finalized, and I'm not on it. There was a pause just long enough to confirm what I already knew. "Oh, honey," she said, in that condescending tone she used whenever she thought I was being too sensitive. "It's just a wedding. Don't blow this out of proportion. Just a wedding. Are you serious?" I kept my voice flat, even though my chest was burning. "I'm her brother. How am I not invited?" "She had to keep it small," she said with a dismissive sigh. "Weddings are expensive, and they figured you'd understand." I clenched my jaw. She invited 150 people. I saw the guest list. Friends from college, co-workers, people she hasn't talked to in years, but not me. Well, maybe they thought you wouldn't mind skipping this one. That's when it hit me. They didn't think I'd mind. They just didn't think about me at all. "You know what?" I said quietly. "Fine." I hung up. No yelling, no drama, just a decision. If they didn't want me there, I wouldn't be there. In fact, I wouldn't even be in the country. That same night, I booked a 1-week vacation to a beach resort in Belize. 5 stars, oceanfront suite, spa included. I'd always talked myself out of trips like that. Too expensive, too indulgent, but not this time. This time, I wasn't just taking a vacation. I was making a statement. When the wedding weekend rolled around, I was already in the sky sipping champagne in first class. I posted a picture of my legs stretched out with the caption, "Got cut from the guest list, but I think I'll survive." Reactions rolled in fast. Laughing emojis from cousins. A "good for you" from my Aunt Maya. But the real kicker? 3 back-to-back texts from Mom. "Where are you? You're seriously skipping the wedding over this? This is petty." Petty. I responded with a photo of white sand, turquoise water, and a cocktail in my hand. Then I turned off my phone. For the first time in years, I wasn't the family fixer. I wasn't the emotional sponge. I was just a guy on vacation, and it felt incredible. From the moment I stepped off the plane and that warm, salty breeze hit me, I knew I'd made the right call. A black SUV picked me up from the airport, bottled water in the back, cool towels waiting for me. The resort was straight out of a dream. Open-air lobby, palm trees, and a check-in drink that tasted like pineapple heaven. I walked into my suite floor-to-ceiling windows, private balcony, ocean view, and stood there for a solid 5 minutes just breathing it in. That night, I posted another photo when one door closes. Make sure the next one opens to a private beach and unlimited margaritas. Was it petty? Maybe. Did I care? Not even a little. I slept like a baby that night. No midnight texts, no emotional calls, no being dragged into family drama. And then the messages started coming. At first, I ignored them. I figured it was just more backlash about the post, but the volume kept increasing. Mom, Nora, Uncle Dave, even my cousin Ryan. Calls, voicemails, texts, dozens of them. I finally glanced at the latest one from Ryan. Bro, you're not gonna believe this. I raised an eyebrow, curiosity getting the best of me. The groom just walked out, like mid-reception. Total meltdown. It's a Fing disaster. I blinked. Wait, what? I opened another message, this one from my mom. Call me. Emergency. Then Nora, please. I need you. And then the kicker, my cousin Melissa, who was always the level-headed one, messaged. He walked out after a fight. There was screaming. Then Dad and Uncle Dave started arguing. Grandma cried. It's chaos. I leaned back on the lounge chair, watching waves lap the shore, and let out a slow, satisfied breath. They didn't want me there. Now they wanted me to fix it. And for once, I wasn't going to. The last message I saw before putting my phone down again was from Nora. Answer your phone, please. I need you. Funny how fast things change. 1 minute, I'm just her brother. Not important enough for a seat at her wedding. The next, I'm apparently the only person who can save the day. Nah, not this time. I dropped the phone face down on the table next to my drink, let the ocean breeze roll over me, and closed my eyes. Let them feel what I felt forgotten, pushed aside, like an afterthought. The next morning, I woke up to the sun lighting up the room like golden honey. Waves were crashing in the distance, and the smell of sea air floated through the open balcony. I stretched, yawned, and for a second, I genuinely forgot about the wedding fallout. Then I picked up my phone. Big mistake. 27 missed calls, a dozen voicemails, and now people I didn't even speak to regularly were texting me. One of the voicemails was from Mom. Voice sharp and tired. I don't know what you're trying to prove, but this isn't the time for one of your tantrums. Nora is heartbroken. We need to come together, not fall apart. Click. Deleted. Next one, Nora's voice, strained and shaky. Please. I don't understand why you're doing this. You're my brother. I need you. Just call me. Another click. Then, one that made me chuckle. Ryan again. Heads up, man. Mom and Aunt Lydia are planning to show up at your apartment when you get back. Grandma keeps saying the wedding was cursed because you weren't there. This is wild. I saved that one. I tossed the phone on the bed and walked out onto the balcony. The sun was rising, the sky painted in pink and orange streaks, like someone had spilled sherbet across the horizon. It was peaceful. Quiet. Mine. They were scrambling, making calls, pointing fingers, holding emergency family meetings. I was sipping espresso on a balcony in a bathrobe, eating a breakfast so good it could have been illegal. In some countries, pancakes so fluffy they melted like clouds, mango slices fresher than anything I'd ever had back home, and a mimosa that felt like a soft slap of sunshine. And just for fun, I posted a photo with the caption, "Starting the day stress-free. Hope things are calm back home." Minutes later, a notification popped up. Message request, Melissa. Okay, I know you're ignoring everyone. Totally fair. But please, call me. You need to hear what happened after the reception. You're gonna love it. Melissa had always been cool, level-headed. If she said it was worth hearing, I figured it probably was. So, against my better judgment, I called her. She picked up immediately, like she'd been waiting with the phone in her hand. Oh my God, you actually called. Okay, are you sitting down? I looked around. Shaded cabana, chilled drink, the sound of the ocean lapping nearby. Yeah, I said. Think I'm in a pretty solid position to hear whatever this is. Melissa exhaled like she'd been holding it in for hours. So, after the groom stormed out, Nora went completely off the rails, screaming, crying, throwing centerpieces. She hit one of the bridesmaids with a shoe. I blinked. A shoe? Yeah. The good kind. Stiletto. Real damage potential. I leaned back, trying not to laugh too loud. Wow, it gets better, Melissa said. Aunt Lydia started whispering that none of this would have happened if you'd been there. That got my attention. She said, what now? She told Mom that you were always the one to calm Nora down, that if you'd been there, you could have smoothed everything out, like usual. Mom snapped at her. They started yelling, and then Grandma joined in. I was grinning now. Let me guess. Grandma had a cosmic theory. Oh, you bet. She said Nora brought misfortune on herself by disrespecting family. Said, and I quote, when you turn your back on blood, the spirits turn their back on you. She made a whole scene. People were whispering about it for hours. I sat in silence for a second, just soaking it in. Melissa wasn't finished. And then get this, Mom tried to call the groom's parents to work something out. His mom, she just smiled and said, this is your circus now. Cold as ice. I laughed so hard I had to put my drink down. So where's Nora now? I asked. Last I heard, still crying, still blaming everyone but herself. Apparently, she's talking about or doing the wedding with someone else down the line. But honestly, she's burned so many bridges this weekend. I'm not sure she has anyone left to stand beside her. I let that sit for a moment. Then I said, you know what the best part is? What? I don't care. Melissa burst into laughter. Honestly? Good. You shouldn't. I just thought you'd enjoy hearing how the universe handled it for you. Oh, I'm loving every minute, I said. Thanks for the update, Mel. Anytime. Enjoy the beach. And for the record, you did the right thing. We hung up. I leaned back into my chair, let the breeze wash over me, and closed my eyes again. This was peace, and they could keep their drama. For once, they were feeling what I'd felt for years, excluded, overlooked, like their needs mattered more than mine. Not anymore. That evening, I booked a sunset cruise. The sky burned in shades of orange and purple as we drifted along the water, sipping wine and listening to the slow crash of waves against the hull. Back at the resort, I had a steak that nearly brought tears to my eyes. I slept like a rock under crisp white sheets, the soft hum of the ocean my only lullaby. And when I woke up the next day, something in me had shifted, lighter, freer. I opened my phone. Bad habit. But there it was. More texts, more missed calls. Nora, Mom, Aunt Lydia, even an unknown number that was probably a burner account they made just to reach me. One message stood out from Melissa again. Okay, just a heads up. Your mom's planning to have the family talk things through when you get back. She's calling it a healing session. Lol. I could practically hear her eye roll. I typed out a response. Thanks for the heads up, but I won't be there. Melissa responded almost immediately. Wait, what? What do you mean? I'm extending the trip, maybe indefinitely. If they wanted me gone, they got it. I'm out. A few dots appeared as she typed. Then, okay, that's iconic. Seriously. Text me when you're back whenever that is. I smiled, closed the messages, and opened my laptop. Another week in paradise? Booked. They made their decision when they cut me out. I was just returning the favor. The morning after I extended my trip, I stood barefoot on the warm balcony tile, sipping coffee that tasted like roasted heaven. Below me, the beach was just beginning to wake up early risers jogging by the surf. A couple laughing as they set up towels, the waves moving in and out like breathing. And me? I was finally exhaling after years of holding my breath for other people. I hadn't always been this way. I used to drop everything for family. When Nora locked herself out of her apartment at 2 a.m., I was there. When she broke up with that guy who cheated on her, I sat on the phone for hours listening to her cry, even though I had a big meeting the next day. When she needed help moving cross-country for a new job, guess who rented the truck and drove overnight? But when it came to her special day, I was nothing. An optional extra, a name on the chopping block. I'd thought maybe the beach would soften that anger, that maybe, just maybe, time and space would give me some clarity. It did, but not the way they wanted. The longer I was away from it all, the more I realized how one-sided everything had been. It wasn't just about a wedding. It was about years of being expected to show up without being seen, to give without receiving, to forgive without apology. Not anymore. I posted one last photo to my feed. Sunrise on the water, a single sailboat drifting out past the reef. The caption was simple, no regrets, just peace. That was it. A few hours later, another message popped up. Guess who? Mom. You need to stop acting like a child and call me. Right behind it was another from Nora. Can't believe you're doing this. You're so selfish. Then an unknown number, probably Aunt Lydia again. We need to fix this family before it's too late. Too late for what exactly? I didn't respond. Not yet. But then Melissa messaged again. I know you're ignoring everyone, and honestly, I don't blame you. But I need to tell you one last thing. It's about Nora. I hesitated. Melissa had never lied to me or guilt-tripped me. She had always been the one who saw the whole picture. So I gave her a call. She didn't even say hello, just jumped in. Okay, so Nora's trying Tordo the wedding, I swear. She's talking about having a new ceremony. Same dress. New groom eventually. She's spiraling. I stayed quiet. She said something yesterday that I thought you should know, Melissa added. She said, and I quote, maybe if I had invited Daniel, things wouldn't have gone so wrong, I snorted. Now she wants to reverse the karma? She said she felt like everything started unraveling the moment she sent that text cutting you out. Like something shifted. Even Grandma agreed. Said the ancestors probably got offended. I let out a slow breath through my nose. Well, the ancestors have taste. Melissa chuckled. I don't know what they expect now. You've been more graceful than anyone I know would have been. I looked out toward the sea, watched a pair of gulls flying low over the waves. Melissa, I said, it's not about them anymore. Not for me. I finally got space to think, really think. And the more distance I get, the more I realize I don't owe anyone my presence just because we share a last name. She was quiet for a beat. I get that, and I support you 100%. Thanks. The first mean that. After we hung up, I sat for a long time on that balcony, letting the salt wind run through my hair, sipping what was left of my coffee. There was no fire in my chest anymore, just air, clean, warm, free. Later that day, I wandered down to the beach with nothing but a towel and a paperback novel. I spent hours floating in the water, napping under an umbrella, watching the tide wash in and out like clockwork. The world didn't feel so heavy anymore. It wasn't until that evening when I came back to my room and opened my phone that I saw the final wave of messages. Nora, I know I messed up. I wasn't thinking straight. I didn't mean to hurt you. Can we talk? Please? Mom, she's been crying for days. I know she was wrong, but this isn't the answer. Come home. Let's fix this as a family. Another relative I didn't even check who sent. Family forgives. That's what we do. I stared at the screen. Then I typed my final message. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine. I'm done being the fixer. I'm not coming home for a talk, or a guilt trip, or a redo. I'm finally living for me. And I meant every word. Before they could respond, I hit block on every number I hadn't already. Then I turned my phone off completely and tossed it in the hotel safe. The next morning, I woke up early and walked barefoot along the shore. The sun was just rising, and the water felt cool against my feet. A couple of birds darted around the surf, and I saw a kid further down the beach trying to build a sandcastle before the tide washed it away. It felt like the world was starting fresh. No calls, no messages, no obligations. Just me, a man who had finally learned that love without respect isn't really love. That family, when it hurts more than it heals, needs boundaries. That sometimes the best way to heal is to walk away. I didn't go home that week. I didn't even go home the next. I kept the trip going, hopping to another island, then another. Every day I added to my journal. Every night I slept better than I had in years. I didn't disappear. I just reappeared somewhere I mattered, and for the first time in my life, I was free.